I got the job! And that's what I want you to be able to say after putting into practice what I'm about to teach in this video. Because the feeling, right, the excitement of putting yourself out there, and maybe you've applied to 1, 5, 10, hundreds of jobs, you finally get that interview and you've nailed it. I want you to experience the excitement of landing that dream position. And so in today's video, I'm gonna share 7 school administrator interview tips. My name is Danny Bauer over at Better Leaders, Better Schools. I'm a chief ruckus maker. And ruckus making is about being an out-of-the-box leader, making change happen in education. So in just a sec, I'm gonna share those 7 school administrator interview tips. See you in a minute. All right, tip number 1, and again, I'm sure that you have never heard these tips before, and so I encourage you take notes, even while you're watching too, in the comments. If you find a tip super helpful, let me know in the comments, because that helps me understand what is actually serving you as a school leader. So tip number 1, as a teacher, we used to create seating charts, right? And that's because we wanted to know who was in the room, and maybe it's a little bit about control if we're honest too. But here's the thing with seating charts. I'm going to encourage you when you come to an interview, and I'm talking not an interview when it's just you and another person or 2, but you might use it with 2. But I remember when I was interviewing for principal positions, I would have basically like a board, on the interview panel, and there would be somebody from central office, school leaders from the current building, teachers, parents, maybe even students. So I'm encouraging you, write a seating chart. Because in the formalities of the beginning of an interview, everybody's waving hello, they're letting you know their name and their position, and so you can take that information and actually leverage it to help you have a more effective interview. Here's why. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie says that the sweetest sounding name in all of the English language is somebody's first name. First names matter. And so by writing down everybody's name in a seating chart at an interview, you can say, well, Bill, well, Latasha, well, whoever, right? Thank you for that question. And it builds instant rapport. It's about relationships, and sort of like subconsciously, you are demonstrating that you're savvy at building relationships, which is key if you want to be an effective school leader. Well, that's all I have to say about seating charts. That idea is pretty easy. So let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2. We've got your body. I want you to leverage your body, right? In terms of landing the job and crushing the interview. So when I'm thinking about your body, think about your face. Okay, first of all, 1, in a negative sense, your face can betray you. If somebody lobs out, you may know this if you've been a leader before, even as a teacher, I guess. Somebody does something, maybe it's silly, maybe you disapprove. What happens? You scowl, you might go roll your eyes, that kind of thing. That will absolutely sink you, right? So if you do that during an interview, so scan your body, be very mindful about how you're showing up. And that's sort of a negative way of using your body. So one of the things, and I have to remind myself of this when recording videos, I might forget to smile, right? So if I was just here like scowling, or even just like plain faced, definitely scowling, you would be out. If I'm plain faced, you might give me a chance. But if I'm smiling, if I'm enthusiastic, then it's more likely that you're gonna enjoy this video. Well, the same thing's true with your interview. So make sure you smile, but it can't be a fake smile. It has to be authentic. So some tips I have about getting into that like good place, maybe you watch some funny videos and that kind of thing, or whatever on YouTube, that type of deal. Or you can, I love playing just music that makes me happy. I have a playlist that literally is called Music That Makes Me Happy. And I'll play that and I'll dance around and stuff to get in a good mood. That is a great way to just get your mind and put out the energy that you want to have when you got that interview and you want to crush it. So that's smiling. Another thing too is leaning in, right? When you lean in, that builds rapport too. folks only get closer to each other when they like each other, right? So that's a little relationship rapport hack as well. And if you've ever had like a mentor or a coach or whatever, right? If somebody says, come here, lean in. Like, you want to get closer to that person, find out what's going on. So that's something you can do too. When you want to have a little more influence in a story you're sharing during an interview, lean in a little bit. And play with, actually, I didn't even realize I was going to share this in the video, but I'm doing it now. I kind of naturally do this. I've worked a lot on presenting and storytelling and talking, but you can speed up, you can slow down, you can use different intonation, right? And if you get quieter, people tend to listen like you're making a very important point, right? So that's a little bit with body, leaning in. Okay, reposition. So reposition. Well, thanks, George. George, thank you for asking that question. George is over here. He asked me that, so I am facing George at that moment. Maybe it's Monique. Monique asked me a question, and so I'm going to pay attention to her, right? So especially when we have these panel interviews, you can use your body and reposition yourself to build more rapport with folks that ask you those questions. You know, if you just move in your head, that's okay. But you know, if you're two friends and you're sitting together, right, they get closer and they reposition themselves to show that intimacy. And you can manufacture some of that smartly, right, by using your body. That's all I want to say about body, and that was tip number 2. So moving on, number 3. Tip number 3 is to mirror. So this has to do with your body a little bit. If you see somebody and they go like this, then maybe you go like that too. If they're scratching their hair. So we do this sometimes naturally with friends, with partners, with people in our family, because we're comfortable with them. But you will tend to, if you mirror folks' body language, right, that will just show that we're the same. And one of the questions people are trying to answer when you're in an interview is this person the right fit? Are they safe, right? It really comes down to safety and danger. Can I trust them? And so if you are doing and using your body in a way that they do as well, they're going to say you're an insider, not an outsider. So that's something with mirroring. We can also use mirroring with our words. So when George, Monique, Latasha, you know, I've used all these names. When they ask you a question, use their name, okay? And then restate what they said. You can also even talk about like reflecting back. Here's what I'm hearing, right? Did I miss anything? And you're just reflecting back, you're mirroring, and that just shows that you are savvy in communication. So not only are they getting signals that you're an insider, that you're great at building relationships, but you're showing this emotional intelligence in terms of communication and active listening, which is super important for leaders. So that's all I want to say about mirroring, which was tip number 3. Tip number 4. Nobody takes me up on this, but I'm telling you that it has worked for me and it will work for you too. Build a web page specifically designed to your school that you're interviewing at. So many of you school leaders are already putting content out there on social media and on a personal blog. If you're not, that's totally fine. But you know, resumes are one thing that is like so old school. You know, if you want to really make an impact, you show people what you're all about by doing the work in public, by showing your work. And if you create results, if you do your work in public, then people know what you're all about before you even get there. If you have that personal blog already, whatever the URL is, for me, obviously betterleadersbetterschools.com, I might do a slash and then the school's name. And what I would put on that page then is a quick 90-second video. Hey, this is Danny. I'm super excited for the position principal at your school, blah, 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 blah. And just tell a real quick introduction story. And then I would put on that page just some artifacts, right? Showing how you've driven results within the school, maybe your personal values. You want to build a bridge from what you're all about to what the school is all about, and just show that on a specifically designed page. A personal touch, and this is like a business tip, but it works in school leadership. One of the easiest, yet it takes a lot of time, ways that I've actually grown my business is by making personal videos. I literally just bought a house. We're moving into a new place. I'm not gonna, talk about that too much or the school district, but I looked up all the principals. I made them literally a 1-minute video just to say, hey, I'm new to the district and I want to be a resource to you, right? Maybe we'll start working together, maybe not. It doesn't matter. I just want to build relationships. My just cause is to connect, grow, and mentor every school leader who wants to level up. And so even just being a resource and being available, even if they don't become clients, that's me living out that mission. But the point is this, or the just cause. The point is this, right? Going a little bit above and beyond and making it personal, making it specialized will set you apart. Nobody else is doing that. And when you get, this many resumes or goes from the floor all the way up to here, like, how do you set yourself apart? That is how, okay? Do something like that. And that's all I have to say about tip number 4, the webpage. Tip number 5, do your homework and show how you live out their values. So, savvy school districts have a compelling vision, mission, and values, right? Or purpose, or I call them sticky core values. Doesn't matter what they're labeled, but hopefully you could do some reconnaissance and do some homework and figure out what a district is all about. Now, when you are invited into an interview, it is your job and responsibility to have stories and examples where you're living out the purpose, the values, or whatever. So paint that picture, make it crystal clear, and again, that's going to set you apart from the rest. It's going to show that you've done your homework, that you do the little things, attention to detail, and again, the insider-outsider tension that I was talking about earlier. It helps people understand that you are somebody they want to bring in, that you're the right cultural fit. So that's all I'm going to say about tip number 5. 2 more tips. Tip number 6. Tip number 6 is story. So I've kind of touched on that throughout this video already. And this is the way I teach, which is why it's fun to be creating this content for you on YouTube. But you want to tell stories, right? And story, in a very, very high level, simplistic way to describe it, is you set the context, you describe the challenge, you show what you as the hero or heroine, how you pivoted, how you changed, and then you show the transformation. That's essentially a story arc, right? And so as long as people ask questions based on, your philosophy about discipline, what would you do in this scenario, that scenario, you want to have a story that illustrates that you understand the question, that you've been through that before, and here's how you've driven results. Now, what do you do if you don't have any experience regarding a question, that the interview panel asks? Just be honest, tackle it, and say, hey, I don't have experience with that. And you might be thinking, is this person then the right fit for the school? Well, let me assure you that I am, and here's why. Here's how I would approach it. So you can still tell a story by pulling back the curtains, by metacognitively talking through how you would approach something that you don't have any experience with. Now, actually, this is a good point in place for me to talk about the Mastermind super quick, and then we'll get to tip number 7. But in the Mastermind, this is a leadership community that I facilitate where we, on a weekly basis, talk about education and leadership at a deep level. You can learn more at betterleadersbetterschools.com/mastermind. But the idea that I want to share with you here and how it connects to the interview opportunity that you may have is this. We meet weekly. Groups start with 3 or 4 school leaders and we close them at 15. And within every single Mastermind meeting, we talk about the number 1 challenge that people face. And then we provide feedback, we ask clarifying questions, we share our own stories of success and failure. And the reason why it's appropriate to bring up the Mastermind while talking about interviews, by consistently, week after week, engaging in these discussions, then you get just your perspective, your worldview. In districts, you can sometimes get into this sort of tunnel vision. You have such a wide breadth of understanding what a school leader faces in districts literally around the world. And even if you haven't approached the situation, you're gonna get a preview of what's out there that you need to be preparing for, reminders of what you need to be thinking about, and you're going to have the tools that everybody else who doesn't have that experience, they're not going to have that. And you could talk about the mastermind, because how many school leaders are investing in leveling up like that on a consistent basis? Not very many, so that would set you apart from the pack as well. So that was tip number 6, which had to do with story. Tip number 7, last tip, you're also interviewing them. So one way, again, to set yourself apart from everybody else in some kind of interview opportunity for school leadership is that you're interviewing them. So ask tough questions, right? I would for sure ask what does it look like your onboarding process, or what does it look like for consistent and ongoing support to help me level up my school leadership skill set, right? And you really want to hear what they say. If they talk about generalities and they can't give you specifics, they're full of baloney. They don't have a program, right? They haven't had it well thought out. And to be quite honest, that's what you're gonna find in most places. And so then you have to decide, is this the right place for me? Just because it's a job doesn't mean that it's the right fit for you. And I wanna encourage you to be super selective. People can sense your energy, right? So we talk about positivity that you wanna bring to the interview, but they can also sense if you sort of have an abundance mindset or a scarcity one. And if you really, really just need the job, it's gonna be, they're gonna pick up on that. And if that's like the only one you got lined up, right? Then they're gonna think like, then this person's a little bit needy potentially. So that's something to think about. So how are you supporting your school leaders? The other thing, and this is controversial. I get pushback on this all the time. But what I wanna say is, in the interview, you can ask, listen, this job seems like an ideal fit for me. I really want this position. During the last 60 minutes, 90 minutes, did I miss any question? Do you still have any questions about me and my leadership that I can clarify right now when I am here, so that you know, and I want to walk away from this interview that you know that I'm the best candidate for the position? I think that's an incredible question to ask. It shows that you have confidence. It shows how much you want the position. So the pushback that I've received is that maybe that's going a bit too far, and maybe the interview panel won't be prepared to answer a question like that, or they'll be a little uncomfortable with that type of question. Have I not answered the questions that you want? Do you have any questions about me and my leadership, and if I'm the right person for the job? So my answer to that pushback is this: if this interview panel lacks the candor that can, look you into the eye and say, yeah, actually, here is one question that I have regarding how you showed up and presented yourself today. We're not quite sure that you have the skills on this topic. Then you don't want to work there, right? If they lack the candor in the interview and they can't lean into difficult conversations, what do you think is going to happen in this district when what hits the fan and you need their support? They're going to pretend that it doesn't exist, right? They're going to basically dig their own grave because they can't talk about difficult issues. So that's all I have to say about that. Guess what? I have a surprise for you. It's a bonus tip! Bonus tip number 1. I've got 2 bonus tips. I'm super excited. All right, bonus tip number 1. I see a lot of people put it in principal groups on Facebook, or I get this question a lot. Is it too much to email, the interview panel, the principal, or whatever? No, that's not too much. And actually, I would recommend that if you email at all, I'd say don't email. But if you email at all, just a quick thanks for your time. But again, what could set you apart from everybody else? Nobody writes handwritten cards anymore, right? So honestly, taking the time, being thoughtful about how much you appreciated the interview experience and you can keep it short, but make it genuine, make it heartfelt, make it authentic. Do a handwritten card, put it in snail mail, and that nobody does. So that'll set you apart from other people too. Bonus tip number 2 would be, here's what you can actually put in a follow-up email. Sometimes when you get out of an interview, you're like, rats, I could have answered this question better, right? Now, I'm not talking about beating yourself up in the imposter syndrome, like, oh man, I just really screwed up that interview. No, if you're really thinking about it, reflecting, and wish that you could have added some depth, some nuance, or maybe you just didn't provide the story that you wish you would have told. It's actually very appropriate, and I've done this before and it's worked well. Hey, interview panel, or this person that interviewed, you asked this question, upon reflection, I'm not quite satisfied with the way I answered it. And here's what I wish I could have shared with the interview panel. I know the interview's over, but I just wanted to communicate this as I've been processing. Now, obviously you can't do that for the whole interview, but if there's like one question or two that you really think that, man, I wish I would have approached that a little bit better, you could do that. And here's what it tells the interview panel too, is that you are a reflective leader. So we've talked about the relational aspects, we talked about clear communication, and now it shows that you're reflective leaders. Reflective leaders are the best kind of leaders too, because they think about what they've done and they learn from their mistakes, right? So every opportunity is an opportunity for you to level up. And so that type of email, just bonus tip number 2, send that reflective email if appropriate, right? Don't manufacture it if you think you crushed it, but there's something you could have done or an idea you wanted to add, and keep it brief, but you could send that off. Thank you for watching today's video on 7 school administrator interview tips with 2 bonus tips. I hope you enjoyed both of them. If you got value from today's video, I need to know, and one way you can show it is to like this video. Make sure you do that and hit subscribe. Hit subscribe right now so that you don't miss any new content that I create for you. A ruckus maker making change happen in education. So here's the question I'd love for you to answer in the comments below. Of the 7 tips or the 2 bonus tips, which tip can you leverage to increase or improve your presence and performance during an interview? Because that's right, an interview is a performance. So which tip basically did you find the most meaningful? And I would love to read that, because that helps me understand too what content is resonating with you. Now you know that I've talked about Little Miss Alba here, and as this video channel grows, Alba has been growing as well, and she is almost actually 8 months at this point. You see that she's wearing this cute little blue and white onesie. I feel like if I had a white hat that I could pop on her there, she'd look like an adorable sailor. Yes, I do spoil this dog, and yes, she has all sorts of goofy stuff, but this one was because little Alba went and got her spay, and so she is recuperating in this onesie. It just shows iteration, right? And so it's a leadership tip here that I'm going to end with, but remember, dogs used to have to wear cones so that they wouldn't lick their wounds and open that stuff up or whatever to allow it to heal. And so that's a pondering that I want you to share, or not even share, actually just reflect on, at the end of this video. What's one thing that you can iterate, that you can innovate within your own leadership, that you can disrupt to make yourself a little bit better, like going from a cone to a onesie? And so it's Danny from Better Leaders, Better Schools, and Alba. Thanks for watching, and go make a ruckus.